Hello and welcome to the Friday edition, this week the only edition of Boilermaker Lounge. I'm Sam Sprunger, as always joined by Grant Flora. Grant, not a lot of news going on, but there's some topics we've got to talk about.
Yeah, just kind of a bunch of little stuff that uh, is kind of important, but obviously we'll talk about some of that stuff that is definitely important, but nothing like major that's, earth shattering as far as Purdue basketball is concerned, just kind of moving more in the right direction. So yeah, it'll be an interesting episode for sure.
Right, it's all of it's important, but we don't have major topics, but there's a couple things. First, let's start talking about the little bit of recruiting news. The Boilermakers here this week, they lost a potential recruit for the 2026 graduation cycle. Trey Thompson reclassifies, becomes a recruit for this year, commits to Iowa. So he was a target for Purdue. Grant, it's not the end of the world, but you hate seeing. It makes you wonder why reclassify, uh, and get going now.
Yeah, he's a guy. Obviously, he would have been a nice add. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't ranked, I don't think, super high. From what I heard, he was back closer to the 100 range.
Right.
Um, so, like, obviously, it's not like we lost a five-star or somebody that we thought was going to make a huge impact right away. I think the Cannon catching situation was more shocking last year than what this was.
Yeah.
But anytime you lose a recruit, obviously, you don't love that. You want guys to want to come to you before anybody else, and then you kind of have your pick. That's not exactly what happened here. He reclassified and went to Iowa, right? I think you said that.
Yep.
Um, I think part of it was this is I don't know if it's been confirmed that this is kind of what he was thinking or what his thought process was, but I think he wanted to go somewhere where he could play more consistent minutes right away. And Iowa was a place like that because he had a lot of big names coming after him, even though he wasn't necessarily ranked as a five-star or one
Mm-hmm.
of those top four stars. So um, I think that's kind of what happened. Is he's like, I can go to Iowa, be on a decent team with like Bennett Sturts and some of those Drake guys and what Iowa's putting together over there, but at the same time not be so overwhelmed by the talent and high caliber programs such as Purdue and UConn and those types of places. So I think that's kind of what happened with him. Hurts not to get those kind of guys if you're Purdue, but they got a lot of other options out there too.
Well, Trey Thompson, a four-star recruit out of Greenville, Tennessee. He's 6'8". He reclassified for this season, or for a 2025, and became a commit to Iowa over Purdue, Clemson, Tennessee, Alabama, Butler, Indiana, Kansas, Providence, Yukon, Villanova, and then it's the infamous and others. But that's the highlight amount that he was, of the schools that were going after him. So a lot of Final Four potential, a lot of blue blood potential there, and he decides to go to Iowa, which, don't get me wrong, if it fits him, it fits him. That's the big thing for any recruit is you want to be you want to fit in wherever you want or wherever you go, but kind of an unusual commitment, and maybe he's thinking I can help get Iowa to that point. But yeah, it's a difficult pill to swallow, I guess, when they reclassify, because it's like, let's hurry up and get there. He would. Uh, it's good that he didn't reclassify and try to, strong arm Purdue, because you know what, Purdue does technically, I believe, have a roster spot open, because they can have up to 15. But I think they only have 14 on the roster, or at least the last count I did. But you're right. He wouldn't have gotten any playing time this year, probably much at all. Next year would have been the time. So, but you know what? Good luck to the young man. Hopefully, both times the Boilers play him, they stomp him both times.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if Purdue would have been willing to even use that roster spot, but even if they had,
No, yeah.
like, reclassifying basically takes Purdue out of the conversation for him because it'd be an automatic red shirt. And
Right.
I take a red shirt and waste a year of basketball when you can either not reclassify, stay in high school, and then come back the next year, or reclassify and go somewhere else. And that's exactly what he did. So, Purdue is just in a tough spot because I think reclassifying was something Thompson wanted to do regardless. At
Mhm.
least I'm not sure that when he was being recruited, he thought that way. But at some point, he decided, I want to reclassify and go to college early. And as soon as he made that decision, I think Purdue was basically out of the running.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like we've talked about with Dustin Schutte and you and I, not every recruit is going to go to Purdue, even though there's a recruiting done and a maybe even an offer given. Not every recruit's going to say, "Yep, we got it from Purdue. We're going." Now, we get excited no matter what because we have enough faith, and he's going to miss sometimes too, or the coaches will. But when Matt Painter and the coaching staff offer, we're pretty positive that that's going to be a good culture guy too. So and you hate seeing those culture guys go elsewhere, because you're like, wow, but maybe it wasn't a perfect fit culture wise, and the hope was, okay, such and such recruit will develop into exactly what we want. So good luck to Trey Thompson. Hopefully he fits in exactly, or he's going right exactly where he thinks he's going to fit in the best. But with that, Purdue then has done a little bit of ramped up their recruiting on uh, some other recruits. I did see. I cannot remember. Is it Cameron Williams? Is that the
Yes.
5-star? He rescheduled his official visit. I didn't see the exact date, but he was supposed to come in here just recently, or here in the near future. But he did reschedule it. I don't know exactly what date, how much time differences. I don't want to read into anything, but you kind of wonder why. But hopefully it's just a minor scheduling issue that made him reschedule. But he has rescheduled, and I've seen that with the loss of, or with the announcement that Thompson was going elsewhere, that Quinn Costello is being a little bit more looked at a little bit harder. Maybe not, all the stops put out for him, but okay, we're going to concentrate on him just a little bit more in hopes to fill the roster spot coming after this basketball season.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue's reached out to a lot of guys and has been on that recruiting scale quite a bit this summer. So
Mm-hmm.
there are going to be lots of options for them, but I agree you will see some increase in intensity probably in their recruiting with guys like Costello, like you mentioned, because you got to get somebody. And if you lose one
Right.
guy, it just means there's a greater chance, one, that you'll have the room for another guy, and that offer becomes a little bit more valid because obviously you can't just have all the recruits you look at, not all of them are going to come to you. That's just the way it
Right.
is. And if they
Right.
all did, you wouldn't have enough room on your team.
Right.
So when one guy doesn't commit, it just means there's a better chance that, like, yeah, we can make something work with this other guy. So they're going to go after guys like Costello a little harder. As far as Williams, again, some of these guys I think that are 5-stars, they know they have the options, and so these scheduling conflicts you might even see a little more often because they're like, I'm pretty highly sought after. I would rather go this day. Let's make that happen. They cater to the 5-star a little bit more, is what they
Sure.
think. Now, hopefully, I mean, Purdue with their culture and trying to get guys that fit their style. Hopefully, it's not too much of that because I don't think you necessarily want a guy on your team who thinks the school needs to cater to them more than they can provide for the school. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so hopefully it's not a lot of that, but um, I can also see, guys that are highly sought after aren't going to worry about making something work if they have another date that might work better for them. And
Yeah.
that's honestly fair. I'm not trying to
Sure.
say
Oh yeah.
that you shouldn't do that, but
He
that's
he is the number 5 recruit in the 2026 recruiting class. His original trip was visit was supposed to be August 29th. It's moved to September 12th through the 14th. So just a couple of weeks later, he's going to be coming to West Lafayette. He's also locked in dates with Duke, which is October 3rd through the 5th, and USC, which is October 11th. So those are the 3 visits that are mentioned in the article by Dustin Schutte talking about Williams rescheduling his visit to Purdue. But a couple
Did you
of
say 12th through? Sorry, did you say 12th through 14th is when he's going?
On September 12th through the 14th. Yeah.
That is the 13th is when Purdue hosts USC in their football.
Yep, and it says that here he'll be in town when Purdue football hosts USC at Ross.
Which I think USC is another one of his schools, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Maybe that has something to do with it.
It's the 3rd visit that he has actually scheduled. So he's got Purdue in mid-September. I'm sure there are others that he'll end up taking. Probably. I mean, why not take these trips, or these visits if you're allowed to visit each school officially once or whatever. But yeah, he's going to be in West Lafayette when the football team hosts USC that weekend. So he'll get to take in the football game and see what kind of environment, which I have found that no matter if the Purdue football team is pretty rough, the environment is still pretty raucous, and it's a good environment to take in a football game. And the fact that it's USC's first visit to West Lafayette since joining the conference, I imagine it will be even bigger of a crowd and style of audience and stuff like that. So
yeah, and they've got a new coach, and it'll be their first conference game. So
yep,
and they should really be 2-0 at that point because they're playing Ball State and Southern Illinois. So you would hope. So hey,
that's ideal.
Right.
That's ideal, Grant, but that's not guaranteed by any means.
I guess what I'm saying is they shouldn't have enough time to dig themselves too much of a hole before they play that USC game, but we'll see.
I know we're a basketball show, but if we look at last year's football season, so it was a rough one. Seeing that they only beat Indiana State last year, and that was the first game of the season. So it was a really long season to be a Purdue fan for football, but well, I digress. Let's move on to some other topics. We talked about Cameron Williams and some recruiting stuff, the loss of Trey Thompson, but and I'll just make a quick real mention of it. Luke Ertl's still doing great things. He's also coming in. He's the only recruit at this point coming in next season. He still continues to jump the charts there and do good things, Grant. I'm really excited for when he hits campus after hopefully a national championship.
Right. And, as far as kind of the freshman class is concerned, I think if you're Matt Painter, you're totally content to be a little more patient than what you have been in the past. Still expecting to bring in a good class of freshmen to replace the guys that are leaving. But if you don't and you end up a couple of guys short, you got the portal. And he's shown now that he's more willing to go and get a couple guys if he needs them. So to me, being more patient, only having one recruit at this point, if anything, is a plus because it just keeps your options open. If you have a transfer you want to go get at some point and you still have the roster spot, then great. Or an international guy like Omar Meyer. Right. But if you get the freshman that you're trying to get, you still have room for them. It just keeps your options a little bit more open.
Well, and it's not that Matt Painter isn't looking, but when you have huge success, the recruits start looking for you. Mm-hmm. And that's not, like I said, that's not to say he's not going out and looking for what he wants on his roster. But like you said, you can be more patient. You can, because that the quality of, he's still looking for that diamond in the rough, but if he can't find it one season, he's going to have some, because they're going to be successful, because they're coming off of a season that they went to the national championship game and then a rebuild season that they almost beat the national runner-up in the Sweet 16. I mean, and prior to that, they were the number one team at one point. Yes, they got beat in the first round of the tournament as a 1 seed. I'm discounting that portion because you know what? I think I don't know that hurts recruiting at all. In order to be a 1 seed that gets to be beat by a 16 seed, you have to be a 1 seed. That means you've done something well. So I think the fact that they've started being so productive and just showing that their culture and that their program is a good one, that will start bringing in some better recruits as well, to where you don't have to work as hard to try to get them to come to campus.
Yeah, I don't think it affects recruiting as much because of how they've responded.
Right.
Like even though they didn't win the national championship like Virginia did the following year, they went to the title game, and then the following season made a Sweet 16 and almost knocked off a 1. Now they're back to championship contenders. They're right back where they were supposed to be. Think about Virginia. Yeah, they won that championship. Then they were, I think, a 4 seed the next year, lost first round, and then have been non-factors ever since.
Yeah.
That's not happening to Purdue. So I think they're finally starting to put that in the rearview mirror, and recruits aren't going to worry about that as much. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So let's we'll talk about this just a minute, because now it's news, and that it's actually been kind of announced, not a final product, but kind of that it's going to happen. The senior vice president of the NC basketball with the NCAA, Dan Gavitt, released a statement regarding the possibility of March Madness expansion. He did that on Thursday. And basically, Grant, no later than the 27 tournament, there will be expansion to either 72 or 76 teams. They're hoping to do it as soon as the 26 tournament. So it could be this tournament coming up that there could be expansion. It's just a matter of how they get the agreement and the verbiage and the basically all their T's crossed and their I's dotted. It could be as soon as this coming up tournament that we have more than the 68 teams in the tournament.
Yeah, that's crazy, especially that it could happen this tournament. I kind of doubt that happens just because it feels like it would move too fast. But at the same time, things move fast all the time. So I kind of hope that it doesn't like this year. But obviously, from what it sounds like, it's going to happen. It's only another 4 to 8 teams, so it shouldn't change anything dramatically, except just make it a little bit more interesting those first couple of days. But yeah, it's going to be change can be here or there as far as whether or not I feel like it's positive or not, and how
Right.
the excitement. But at the same time, bringing something new is always kind of exciting no matter what. So if it does expand, like I'll be excited to see what it looks like with the extra first round games and whatnot. But I don't know. We've already discussed on this channel before how it doesn't feel like it needs expanded, and it doesn't feel like they're going to solve much by expanding it.
And I guess I need to step back just and pull that back just a little bit. The viable outcomes include, this is part of Gavitt's statement. The still viable outcomes include the tournaments remaining at 68 teams or expanding the field to either 72 or 76 teams in advance of the 26 or 27 championships. I'm sorry, but if you're putting out a statement like this and it's we've seen the smoke of it's gonna expand at some point, I don't know that there's much of a chance it stays at 68 teams, period. But I think maybe, and it says, even though, and this is not part of the statement, this is part of Dustin Schuette's article. It says, while it's not ruled out entirely, it seems the chances for expansion to the 26 tournament could be or would be slim. It's only 8 months away, and giving it would only give the organization a very small time to make any necessary changes to the format. But yet, it still hasn't been ruled out, Grant.
Yeah, Yeah, I would agree that probably those chances are slim.
Right.
But yeah, just the fact that they're considering this, I like you said as well, it doesn't sound like they're gonna stay at 68. I feel like that's just to cover your bases to put that in there.
Right.
Um,
Well, or okay, the chance of staying at 68 teams probably really good for this tournament.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
So that's probably part of it too.
Yeah,
Um, so It from what it sounds like to me, they probably stay at 68 this tournament and then expand
I agree.
next year. Um, it seems like the most likely situation based off what they're saying.
Right. Right.
But obviously, who knows? Either way, it's still March Madness. It's still going to be a lot of fun. Um, as far as like winning a national championship is concerned, like if say it were to expand this year and Purdue is where we think they're going to be as one of the favorites to win a championship, I don't know that it matters a whole lot.
I don't think it
Like
does.
they won't have to play in that opening round or the first four, so it'll be like the first 12 or whatever it is
Right. Right.
with those extra schools. They still only have to deal with those 64 teams. They're going to be seeds that Purdue shouldn't see, assuming they would stay at the 10 and 11 lines,
Unless
unless
they,
it's a
well, they'll include
unless
the
it's a
16
16
seeds
seed,
too.
right?
Yeah.
If they play, but either way, like obviously we've seen them have some trouble with the 16 seed from Dayton anyway.
Sure.
But
Sure.
um,
Sure.
as as far as those extra bubble teams, which all of those, I'm pretty sure all of those extra teams would be those at large teams, or would they add some 16 seeds to the?
I
I
would
guess they haven't
assume.
clarified.
I would assume that, and I have no way of knowing this, but like right now, of the 4 games that get played in Dayton, 2 of them are 16 against 16, and 2 of them are at large against at large. I would assume, and to me, this would make the most sense. Let's say you have 8 total games. Let the 4 16 seeds be first
Hmm.
round games to where they get put in against 1 seed. So all 16 seeds are double seeds because they go to an extra site and play a game to get into the traditional 64 team bracket, and then do the same thing with the 11 seeds or whatever because typically the 11 seeds are the last at large, the last ins.
Hmm.
Let all 4 of the 11 seeds be the same thing. I picking and choosing which, it never makes sense to me. As why wouldn't, if you've got 2 16 seeds playing against each other, why wouldn't why wouldn't those go to the top 2 1 seeds? Like
Yeah,
the 2 16 seeds play and they go in and play the number 1 overall seed. But like this last year, I don't think it happened. Like this, Purdue was not the number 1 overall seed when FDU played in
no,
to go in to play against Purdue.
they were the four, I think.
Yeah, I think they were the 3rd or the 4th 1 seed, and they got a play-in game. So I don't know. I would just personally, I would think, and anybody's free to let us know what their thoughts are, is why wouldn't you do all 4 16 seeds go in and play and they get dispersed, and then the lowest of your at larges do the same? Because I don't want to see, oh, these 2 teams, the play in, the winner becomes a 9 seed. No, you're the last ones in for a reason. You should have the lowest seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I could definitely see that happening. The at large, the seed lines would vary a little bit by tournament because that all depends how
Right.
many at large teams you have versus um your automatic bids that wouldn't have been at large anyway. Like that's
Right.
kind of how that works. The more bid stealers you have, the further down those seed lines for those at large play-ins are going to be. Is kind of how it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally, I think the 4 and the 4 sounds like as good of an idea as any. So in that case, the only way the expansion would affect Purdue at all in a situation where they are a 1 seed fighting for a championship is they're guaranteed to play a play-in team at that first round as a 16 seed. That is literally the only way, unless one of those teams
Mm-hmm.
makes a run in their tournament, in which case you still got to beat somebody. It, it's not really, it's not making them play an extra game. Their location shouldn't even be messed up really because they're not going to have to deal with that first round.
Mm-hmm.
It's as much as we talk about not necessarily wanting a major change to the tournament because it's so good already. If Purdue's going to be a championship contender year in and year out, it's not going to make a huge difference for them.
Well, and I've gone on the record here and everywhere else that I talk about the tournament expansion. As long as there's not a new round being added for everyone, you
Mm-hmm.
know that 64 is the perfect amount for 16 team 4 region tournament. It's a perfect amount. You eliminate half of the field each round till you get one. That's perfect. Now they started, they added 65, the 65th team, and that made it one play-in game. And then all of a sudden they added 3 more teams to make to where we're at with 68. But it's not adding a full round for every single team. And I think that for one thing, that adds a whole new basically week to the tournament because you've added a new round. You've got to get those played out, and as you add one more round for 64 to play into 64, you've got to have a lot of teams in there to add in. So as long as it's not adding that full round, I'm not on board necessarily, because it seems to me like you're just changing to make change. But it's not as drastic of a change to me unless you start saying, okay, now it's going to take any team that wants to win a national championship 7 wins rather than the 6 that are already there.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. It's interesting because, like you said, they kept expanding a few teams at a time. And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this expansion isn't necessarily into the world, but what happens when we're at 76, say 76 for 10 years and they want to expand again? Then it's like, okay, we're getting up to the point now where you're going to have some decent teams that have to play more games basically to make it further. And I don't know. I don't know how many times we can keep going this direction without starting to encroach upon that extra round for most teams. So,
Well, and you and I being from the state of Indiana, we know what it's like to have every team included, and I don't want that with college basketball. We
yeah,
don't want every team included into the tournament. I'm not saying that it's horrible in the state of Indiana because historically, before we even went to class, which was back in 1998, Indiana, it was one class, and you had big schools playing small schools and sectionals, so it weeded itself out a little bit. But now, but still, everybody makes the tournament in order to play their way through to get to a state championship. I don't want to see that in college basketball because what do we just play the regular season for? You know,
yeah,
excuse me, because you talk about watering down the value of the regular season. You start expanding just for expansion's sakes and starting getting 100 and what's 128 teams, which is a double 64. Well, then you're playing for 2.5 months a tournament,
yeah.
and you're tired of it by then. I love March Madness because for the most part, other than the Final Four national championship, it's all played in March, and it's
Hmm.
the equivalent of 2 weekends basically, maybe a third in March depending on when it starts. But for the most part, you've got just jam packed wall to wall basketball for like 2.5 weeks, and prior to that, you've got the conference tournament, which really it's fun to it's kind of a warm up for March Madness. That's what makes that great. You start
Right.
making it to where you've got, well, this year it starts at the beginning of March, but it will end in the middle of April. Okay, you're starting to do,
Like the playoffs in the
it's
NBA.
yeah, it's not going to make it better just because it lasts longer,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what I'm hoping they don't try to get to. Coach Matt Painter did weigh in on this. He was on the Big Ten Network in an interview, asked about his thoughts on the expansion, and I'll read the little snippets of quotes that are here in this article. He says, I'd like to be in the room with people who want the expansion just to hear why. He says, then how the sausage is made. How are you going to do it with these games? How are you going to break it down that first weekend? Are you going to have more starts on Tuesday and Wednesday, like we do in Dayton? Things of that nature. He says, you get to your opinion after listening to everybody else's, And my knee-jerk reaction is, why mess with something that's working? That's how I feel, but I still want to listen. I think that it's the right spot. I think it's at the right spot, but if it's better for college basketball, you have to stop and listen to others. And I don't disagree. I'm not opposed to hearing why, but don't just make the change for change's sake.
Right. I think that's a really mature statement from Matt
Yeah,
Painter. Shows
agreed.
that like we're not closed off to options and to hearing out other opinions,
Right.
but also making the point where he feels right now and where he probably would feel anyway. But all those details matter. They especially to coaches and the athletes
For
that are trying
sure.
to compete. So those details can make a difference in whether or not you support the overall decision or not. So yeah, I think that's a pretty mature statement from Painter, and really what I think just about everybody in this situation should be the mindset or approach that they should have is maybe they have an opinion on it, but at least hear out what the options are and actually understand what could happen before you have your final opinion and decision.
He also went on to say, and we've talked about this as well with one another. I think we've even chatted with Dustin Shooty about it as well. It says, Painter argues that no matter what the number the NCAA settles on, there will always be teams left on the outside trying to make the case. He's quoted to say, "You're still going to have a line no matter what you do. So if you say, hey, we're going to add in 8 more schools, you're still going to have 3 or 4 more schools afterwards saying they should have gotten in. No matter how far you expand, there's always going to be a team going, well, why weren't we number 72 or number 76? We were better than them." There are some there every year. There's at least one that is a pretty legit argument, but then those other ones are like, okay, but we still have to listen to them no matter what. It's going to happen. Even if we only had 15 teams, you'd have 10 teams on the outside going, we should have been better than we were better than them. So it doesn't matter how far you expand. Yeah, you're being more inclusive of teams that are on that fringe, but then you've made a new fringe.
Right. That's why I think I just said something earlier. Like, it doesn't really solve any of the issues. It adds some games,
Right.
and could be a little more fun depending on how they do it. But it doesn't solve any of the major issues that anybody might have right now, as far as whether or not certain teams can get in. So
Right.
That's kind of where my stance is, as far as like I don't think the expansion really is going to bring a whole lot of benefits, as opposed to some of the negatives it could bring. But again, I don't know what the details are going to look like, and those details make a huge difference in whether or not it's a good expansion or not. So
like, what was it? Not this last year, the year before, when Purdue made it to the national championship game. That was the first time in a really, not long time, but a good amount of years that I can remember there was really an atrocity of a team being left out, and that was Indiana State. They were in the net top 30. No team had ever been let out or kept out of the tournament with a net top 30 ranking. They were. I feel that. Do I think they would have won the national championship? No. Do I think they would have made it to the Final Four? No. But I do believe that they were legitimately should have been a tournament team. Last year, there wasn't a notable atrocity of a leave out. I think the one that I thought was probably the worst was IU, and they didn't have a huge case. I mean, they had a case, but it wasn't huge.
Yeah, it was more the issue of North Carolina getting in.
Correct.
And even
that
if
was
they
more the atrocity than IU being left out.
Even if they hadn't gotten in, IU is the second team out, so they wouldn't have even slid in yet. So, yeah,
what was it? West Virginia and IU were the two that were like, really? Because Xavier and North Carolina were the ones that you're like, wow, they got in over West Virginia and IU. But that's the worst. But you're going to have that every single year. Doesn't matter how many teams you got.
Yeah. So it is what it is. We'll just have to see what happens.
That's right. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of today's Boilermaker Lounge. We had a couple other minor things. We can get to those at a later date, Grant. We have we have a lot of time yet. Um, but at this point, we apologize about the miscommunication. We were intending on having two episodes this week, but it just didn't play out with news and then scheduling. I think we're going to play it by ear and maybe try. We'll definitely do one a week. But if we think we've got enough, but we'll make announcements on social media on whether or not it'll be one or a two show week. Just because when we get into the middle of July, it gets really slow. Because for one thing, kids are getting ready to start their new school year, so it's maybe not as much with those seniors that not yet. Once they get into the groove of their school year, that's probably and start making official visits in September and stuff like that. They'll be able to the news will probably start coming a little bit quicker and a little bit heavier, obviously, as we get closer to the basketball season. But we're gonna play it by ear. We'll plan on two a week, but right now, if we don't, we'll make an announcement on social media and let you know. We'll definitely do a Friday show every week, but it may be only a Friday show if we go once a week. So I wanted to make that announcement to everybody wondering, wow, you guys tell us it's twice a week, and then all of a sudden you come out with only one. We're keeping you on your toes. But no, we truly want to have. We don't want to be beating the same drum over and over, week in and week out. It gets tiresome to listen to because we're interesting, but I don't know that we're that interesting. But thanks so much for joining us on this edition of Boilermaker Lounge for Grant Flora. I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you next week.